I'm very much a perfectionist about my grades and making sure I turn in every single one of my assignments.
I want to go to med school, so I have to get good grades for that.
I do a lot of dance, and I will get really, really frustrated if I do a move wrong, like 3 times in a row.
I also have like set regimens for like getting up in the morning and going to bed at night.
If my apartment's not clean, then I'm just like super stressed out and I can't function.
Another one is my hair. Like, there have been mornings where I can't get my hair to get slicked back properly, and I'm like, hey, well, I guess I'm staying in bed today. Because it's just over at that point.
Welcome back to the Take a Leap podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Lia.
We are so excited to have Taif Al-Madi with us. Taif, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hello. I am Taif. I am from Jordan. I grew up in the city Amman, but my dad was originally from the northern Badia, so it was called Difyane. I was born in the U.S. in Provo, Utah, when my dad was studying for his PhD at BYU.
Wow.
Yeah, in sociology. And then I went back home. I was raised there. I went to high school there. When college came around, my dad was like, we loved BYU. Do you want to apply to it? I said yes. And then I came here. And now I'm here. I'm studying genetics and biotechnology. I'm in my 5th year. I graduate in April. And yeah, I'm pre-med right now, studying for the MCAT. And yeah.
Tough.
Wow.
It's tough.
I know. I'm struggling.
Yeah. Good luck. I have no advice.
Yeah, I've had a couple friends take the MCAT, and I'm just like, oh, man.
Yeah.
And all they do is study, and I'm like...
It's as bad as it sounds,
Yeah.
if you're curious.
Perfect.
So for all those kids out there who want to take the MCAT.
Godspeed.
Yeah. So what led your dad to come to BYU?
So my dad, at the time, he knew he wanted to experience something outside of Jordan. He was married to my mom, and they had my first sister. So they were looking for something that was to an extent accommodating to a family environment.
Right.
And also all he knew his life was like Jordan and Islam and everything. So he wanted a place that kind of also religiously aligned with him. And he applied to BYU. He got a scholarship. He came here. And it was super nice. He always talks about his experience, how he came in 2001 during 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And he tried a few other states, and he always talked about how everyone in Utah, because they were members of the church, they were actually very, very nice about it, and they were the most graceful. So that kind of also influenced his decision to stay in Utah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how he
I mean,
came
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Because you're always kind of scared. Like, I grew up in Utah for, like, most of my life, so I'm always like... Man, I hope that people in Utah are representing us well.
Yeah,
And stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, sometimes they don't, but it's okay.
Hey,
We
that's
move past
everywhere,
it.
though.
Right.
That's
It's true,
everywhere
it's
where
true.
you have, like, a bad bunch of people, and yeah.
Ruins it for the rest of us.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the role that faith played in your upbringing.
Well, coming from Jordan is a Muslim country, so naturally faith is going to be super integrated into everything you do. But it was extra integrated, I guess, for me because my parents were super religious as well. My mom came from Saudi Arabia, so that also helps with her having a really religious background. And my dad had also a really religious background. But it was really nice how growing up, they would always teach us the logic of religion and why we do what we do rather than, oh, you're supposed to do this. Like, it wasn't just a practice, it was an understanding. It was kind of like a guideline to life, and we chose to practice it. And that's what was really nice, is like religion in my life has been a choice. I consider religion parallel to every decision I make, even my personality, I would say. It's like, I feel like any bad trait I have, I think religion could solve, I guess, or kind of tell me why I shouldn't have that bad trait, or any bad experience I go through. I always, seek God, seek the scriptures, and seek the Quran, and I always find answers. So it's always been, kind of, as I said, in parallel with everything I do in life.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you talk about religion being a choice. I think that's so interesting because when we started the podcast, we wanted to talk to people who are young adults, like 20s and 30s, because a lot of them grew up in this religious household and then went off to college or went to do their own thing and realized that they really had to decide if this religion was for them or not. And I love talking to people kind of in that decision point or just after that decision point. It's been really interesting to see why people stay in their religion or why they choose to go somewhere else.
Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of difficult for people, especially when religion is so integrated into culture as well, where sometimes people don't even differentiate. It's like, why am I doing this? Is it because I was told to do it, or is it because I'm doing it based on, my religious beliefs? And I think in anyone's lifetime, it's really important to doubt what you believe in. I think you have to have a stage of doubt of like, do I actually believe in God? Do I actually do this? And I think you should come to the answers yourself And I think that grows a really strong and more powerful foundation than what anyone else can tell you, any type of evidence or anything. Because, I mean, it's called a leap of faith for a reason, you know? It's like you're not going to find all the answers you're going to find. It's just, I guess, to an extent, a feeling too.
One of my favorite scriptures talks about, it's in the Book of Mormon, talks about how you have to go through a trial of your faith to get more faith or to have like even truer faith, I guess. Yeah. And I think that's so true. In my life, I think of a lot of times when I've grown the most have been when it's like, oh, I kind of had doubts. I didn't know if I could make it. And I'm coming up on graduation and I'm like, oh man, what does my life hold? What do I do with my life? Can I do this? Do I trust myself enough? Do I trust God enough to like push through, you know? So I think it's super interesting when we need to rely on our faith completely, and then it can grow.
I've liked it BYU when I'm in religion classes and they're like, write this essay about whatever topic you want. Just wrestle with something, learn about something that's really challenging you. But I'm just curious if you could talk about your experience with the religion classes at BYU. Because you have to take religion classes, right? Yeah. Could you just tell us about your experience?
Okay, yeah. I actually love taking religious classes. When I came here, I knew that I had to take religion classes, and I think at first it was a little bit difficult. But BYU has been, to an extent, accommodating with that for non-LDS students. They provide like non-LDS classes for students who aren't members for the Book of Mormon, and they give intro to the church, and they do it also for Foundation of the Restoration. But the rest is, I take it with all the other LDS students, and I always contact professors, just give them, you know, the heads up that I don't know if I'll do as great as everyone else, you know, because most of them are returned missionaries or something. But I actually love it a lot. I think there's so much to learn from the people in front of you. And I actually took this really interesting class at BYU. It's called Ethics in an Interfaith Community. And he talked about how seeing someone as not like an object, like, oh, you're a Mormon, but seeing them as a person, as a you know? And I think those classes gave me the opportunity to do that. So my friends who are members, instead of me, you know, just asking them about their religion and making their religion the central part of our conversation, I kind of already know. So it's like that aspect is to the side. I can respect everything they need to do when it comes to their religion. And I think that's really important, is being able to know each other, understand each other, to see each other in our common ground, which is us being humans, you know? So I think those classes gave me that opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I love the diversity of religious classes that BYU is starting to have.
All right, welcome to our new segment. Josh gets on a political science.
What do you mean new? This is in every episode.
No, I do think it's interesting where a lot of problems that arise like culturally come because we see people through a lens of in-group, out-group. And I think that's a problem. My paper that's due tonight is about genocide. It's about ethnic cleansing and things, and like why that is. I think at the top, a lot of it is because of like political ideology. And I think that's a big problem, is when we just like follow because it's like, oh, we have this main goal and that ideology is so important when nothing is more important than human life. And I think that's what we forget a lot of times, is like, oh, let's sit down with the people and recognize that these are human beings. And that's easier said than done, I guess. It's easier when we're so used to sitting down and we have a nice podcast studio and we're like, yeah, let's just hang out and all be friends. Like, it's so easy to do that. But I think it would be helpful for everyone to do that, for everyone to have a podcast, for everyone to sit down and talk to people they wouldn't generally talk to. Anyway, I'll get off my... That was the end of Josh goes on a political science rant.
I love the start and end. And now I will go on a rant. And now my rant is done.
So, Taif, as you're at BYU, how have you been able to rely on God as you're going through studies? We talked about how studying for the MCAT stinks, and no one wants to do it. But how have you been able to learn how to rely on God more?
Yeah, so I think the most difficult year for me was definitely my freshman year, because it's like you're transitioning from this place that...
Oh, I hate it. Freshman year.
Freshman year was the worst.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I was in COVID year, so I'm old.
Me too, I'm old too. Yeah, so actually I feel like it played a big part of it too, like being in COVID, because I went from this place that's pretty homogenous, honestly, religiously and like ethnically, you know, to this place where it's homogenous but in a different sense. And there were even less and less people of color, because most people of color that come here are not from Utah. And so I was just in this place where no one knew how I was culturally. No one knew how I was religiously. I would get questions like, are women in the Middle East actually oppressed? And it's just this thing you have to deal with on a daily daily basis. And actually, a lot of people would ask me so many questions about my own religion that I was like, oh, I don't know if I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
So in my first year, I feel like it was definitely like a milestone that I had to overcome, both in the sense of I was learning a lot about myself and my religion, and me also having to teach it to other people. So from that sense, I had to rely a lot on, obviously, like finding out the truth about my religion. Do we actually believe this? Do we not believe this? I relied on God also in a sense that when I was struggling, like even mentally, being homesick or not feeling, that connection that I used to feel at home. On those days where I would struggle a lot, I feel like I would obviously seek prayer, and I would pray. And even my mom, she gave me this Quran that was like marked in certain areas, like with verses that she thought would, help me. Yeah, whenever cool. I feel down. And I would do that a lot. And I'm just like, I guess at some point I was like, oh, I still feel the way I'm feeling. Like, why is it that I'm praying to God so much, but I'm really homesick. I'm really lost. I don't know if it's actually worth being here and missing out on, like, I have 4 sisters. They're my best friend. Like, I could be with them right now. But what really helped me is every time I hit that rock bottom, I would go outside and I would have these interactions with people that really felt God sent. I didn't have any friends, but in that moment where I felt like I hit rock bottom and I really just needed to talk to someone, this random girl in my hall that I never talked to was like, hey, can I actually have lunch with you? And then she would talk to me and I'm like, oh, this feels God sent. Like, I feel like she's exactly what I needed right now. And that's happened on so many instances where I'm like, this is my form of, personal relief. This is God sending these people to help me out. And
would you feel that like in the moment?
In the moment, yeah.
Really?
I would feel like it's just because I genuinely would need someone to talk to without knowing I needed someone to talk to. And then when I would talk to them, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I was really going through it in my head without like them knowing. So I feel like in those areas, I always connected it to like God, even though it's not a miracle. Someone just asked me, can I have lunch with you? But I guess that's exactly what I needed at that moment. And it felt like, oh, my prayers are being answered. And it's the people that I feel like God sent to me and the little blessings that were sent to me that relieved my stress so much, that made me realize, oh yeah, I can rely on God. This is exactly what I needed. So.
I think, that's beautiful too, because someone who's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints could be praying like, God, help me find someone that I can help if they're having a hard time. And you're praying like, God, please send someone to help me. I'm struggling, I'm homesick, etc. And he's just working across traditions and really showing that he loves all of his children, no matter their religious tradition. And I think that's beautiful.
Or I think that a lot of people might have been praying for the exact same thing you were praying for.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the times that I'm like, oh man, God is looking out for me is when we're both lifting each other.
Yeah.
It's like, I really needed Taif to come and talk to me too.
Yeah.
That's
like maybe
beautiful.
that girl needed a friend and she was like, I'm just going to ask this girl out.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. I love that.
So a couple of years ago, you had the opportunity to be on a panel and talk about perfectionism. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting because you're on a panel with people from all different religions, and I think it's something that we all kind of deal with is like, okay, we want to live up to high standards, but how can we deal with that? So what have you learned about trying to overcome perfectionism?
Yeah, I feel like, okay, the reason why I was initially struggling with perfectionism so much is because I'm visibly Muslim, like I wear hijab and people notice that's different. And so whether I liked it or not, I was the representation of Islam. Right. And I guess because of that, people expected me to have all the answers. People expected me to follow the religion to the max, to the T, that I don't deviate, not even a little bit. And I was struggling so much because when I would deviate here and there, for example, they know I had to pray 5 times a day. Whenever I wouldn't pray once or I would forget a prayer that day, it's like, oh, aren't you supposed to pray 5 times a day? So it's like you living with that guilt too of like, yeah, I'm not being perfect. So I guess the way I overcame it is really just realizing that everything I'm doing is for myself and God. I tried my best to represent my religion by my actions, the way I treat people and the way I behave in situations. And I tried to focus on the fact that me being religiously perfect, I don't even think it's an expectation from God himself. And if it's people's expectations, then I'm just going to have to disappoint because it's a matter, I feel like, between me and God and the way I treat people too, based on what I think God would agree with. So I guess I got over it by just realizing that God doesn't expect me to be perfect. Yeah. So why expect myself to be perfect,
Yeah, that's so true. I saw something on, I think, Instagram a little while ago, and it said, other people's perceptions of you is none of your business.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me because I just am going to be who I am. And if you have a different perception of me or think poorly of me, that's not my concern. That's on you.
Yes.
So I love that you talked about it being just between you and God not expecting us to be perfect.
Yeah. I feel like it's so funny. The only time I've ever really felt like, oh, I'm visibly a member of the church is when I was on a mission. Because it's like, oh, you have a name tag and I'm the only white person here. So, like, why else would I be here? And it's so funny because people would be like, oh, you have curfew right now. You should be in bed. They're like, yeah, how do you know what my curfew is? It's like, oh, you want some coffee? Oh, wait, you can't drink coffee. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
That's kind of mean, too.
Yeah, they were kind of mean to me. Like, yeah. But it is interesting when you like have a spotlight on you, and these expectations aren't necessarily God's expectations, right?
Yeah. On the other side, then, I guess, what do you think God does expect of you?
That's actually a great question because in Islam, a lot of the things are based off of your intentions. For example, let's say you intended to pray or you intended to do a good deed, but something in your life stops you from that. You still got the good deeds of doing that good thing just because you genuinely intended it to. So I think what God expects me to do is to genuinely have pure intentions towards, walking my path to Him and to Islam and making sure I'm following it to the best of my capabilities. Even when it comes to like mercy and forgiveness, like in Islam, if you do the biggest sin in history, after that, if you close your eyes and your true intention is to be forgiven and your true intention is to never do that again, you just have to ask God for forgiveness. There's no intermediaries between you and God. There's no anything that's stopping God from forgiving you. If you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, but at the end, your intention is truly to be forgiven and to do what's right, then God will forgive you. I think what God expects me to do is to have the purest intentions of I'm actively seeking to do everything that I can do. But when I do a mistake here and there, I ask for forgiveness. And I think that's another expectation, is acknowledging that you might have shortcomings, but you're still asking. You're seeking God and asking for forgiveness.
Yeah, I love that. I just keep thinking, wow, like that's exactly what I believe too. Because there's a scripture that says, I'm going to paraphrase, but God's going to judge you for your actions and if you keep His commandments, but also if you seek so to do. Like, if that's what you're trying to do, God understands circumstances better than anybody else.
100%.
So.
Yeah. And like the wrong decision that you make, it's already done. And at this point, your only decision is to go to God and repent and seek forgiveness, or just to live with it. And it's going to be worse if you live with it.
Right. Yeah.
I agree.
Don't want that.
Yeah.
I think people don't give God enough credit that if He's all powerful and all merciful, I think He also will understand nuances, and that's why I say I don't think He expects perfectionism. I think He expects that you always at the end go back to Him. So.
Yeah, I love that.
When you were in Jordan, you had this eye-opening experience basically where you saw that there was limited access to healthcare. The first small town that you were in, right?
Yeah.
And now that's led you to be like, I want to be in the medical field, right?
Yeah.
Would you mind speaking to that and like how
I'd love to.
What you see and what you want to go out and do?
Yeah. So in Jordan, just some context, it's very tribunal. So a lot of tribes, my tribe specifically, it's a Bedouin tribe, and they live in like a small village in northern Jordan, and it's called Difyane. So my dad lived there his whole life, and then he worked really hard to give himself better opportunities, and that's when he moved to the city. But every weekend we would go back, and all my cousins lived there, and it really broke my heart that a lot of the times, for example, one time my cousin got bit by Scorpio, and they had to drive an hour and a half to get to a hospital. Wow. And I'm like, well, in an actual emergency, an hour and a half is crazy,
Way too long.
Way too long. And my grandfather was the leader of our tribe, and he actually fought to have the Jordanian government build a school in our village too. And I feel like a part of me was not only following in his footsteps, but also trying to create this initiative of everyone deserves healthcare, even if they're in a small village in Jordan, So that was a big part of, why I decided to truly stick to healthcare and medicine. And obviously, I will say there's a big religious aspect of it.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
You read my mind.
There's a big religious aspect of it. I feel like my purpose in life And I feel like God put me on this earth to not serve myself, but serve my family. And my family just so happened to be in a place that's underserviced. And I can't even imagine what other places look like. So I think my ultimate goal is to give back to the world, to the people around me. Because even in our small village, because it was on the borders with Syria, during the Syrian war, so many refugees would walk from the borders to the northern Badia. And they were just allowed to, just pass through the borders. And I would hear so many of their stories and their testaments. And I'm like, oh, no one deserves to live through that. The difference between me and someone who was born in Syria is I just was born 2 hours away. It's not because I'm anything special. And I feel like God gave me a blessing so I can use it and take advantage of it and do something that they're not able to do.
Yeah, I think that's huge when it's like, man, I've been so blessed and I'm so lucky. And I feel like sometimes when it's like finals week especially, I'm just like, I'm not blessed. God hates me and everyone else does too. But outside of finals week, I'm pretty good at being like, well, I'm so blessed, so I should use that blessing to help other people somehow. And I feel like that's a perfect example. And so good that you're able to recognize that and be able to say, well, these are like my actual family members and they need help. And you're able to do something in a way that a lot of people aren't able to do just because they don't know, right? Like they don't have that connection to Jordan. There's a reason God blessed you with gifts and abilities and sent your dad to BYU and now you.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that this whole goal of yours was started with your family and then you extended it to these Syrian refugees too and said, well, there's nothing really too different about me and them and I can help them out too. Yeah. Not just your family. It's great.
All right. Top 3 things in America that you wish were in Jordan. And then we'll do top 3 things in Jordan that you wish were in America.
Oh, great question.
So good. Okay. Let me think about this. This is going to need some deliberation.
And I want you to try and win us over. Okay. Like, we really need this in America.
Okay.
And the things in America to Jordan. Like
to
why,
Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So it could be food. It could be whatever. But
okay.
Yeah.
The thing I would bring to Jordan is free water. Because we don't get free water. You have to buy water.
You have to pay for it?
You have to pay for water.
Wow.
So even if you go to restaurants, it's like you have to pay for water. But here you can just go anywhere and just get water.
Okay, free water.
Free water. Okay, I'm going to have to think about this, guys.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll edit this.
AC.
Perfect.
Like central AC. Like a lot of times there's like places where it's this big box that you see next to the ceiling and it's not actually doing anything and in Middle Eastern heat you're like, oh, I want to be in America right now.
Just for the AC.
Just for the AC.
I'm not going to lie, my apartment right now, we just have a little box in our window and it's the worst. It does nothing.
That's a little taste of the Middle East.
I'll remember that.
And Europe too. That's how Europe is. What would I bring? Honestly, Costco. I'd bring Costco.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Okay, what would you bring from Jordan?
Okay, I'd bring a lot from
We got things to change.
We got things food-wise specifically.
All right. Let's hear
so
food-wise.
I would say shawarma.
Okay.
That's the first one, shawarma. What else? I'm going to say, honestly, the party life, Like, everyone's sober in Jordan, that's for sure. But, like, they know how to have fun, when they're, even if they're sober.
So you're saying that people at BYU don't know how to party?
Not necessarily.
We have no fun in Provo, Utah.
I do have to preface this by my experience is the Utah experience, not the American experience. I haven't been outside of the States. So
which Utah also sober, just not that fun.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to say this are the 3 things that I'm bringing to Utah. Yeah. I also would. Okay, this is kind of also. I had this discussion with my friend the other day, and he talked about how America has not mastered the third space, as in like the leisure space. How like the first space is your house, and then the second space is work. But I feel like the third space is, when you go to Jordan or Europe, it's like all these small little bakeries and coffee shops, and no one really spends time at home, So I feel like I would bring that to America.
That's interesting.
I'm like,
the
I
casual
go school,
leisure
work,
places.
Home, school, work, home. Oh no.
Yeah, my third
I need to go somewhere else.
is this podcast.
All right, Taif, it's been so fun to have you on the podcast.
Thank you
Is
so
there
much.
anything that we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to talk about? Any questions you wanted to ask that you didn't?
I'm good.
Yeah. I think if everyone is just I mean, again, this is easier said in a podcast than done, but just be graceful to everyone around you. Be nice. Even if you have questions, I personally never get offended by any questions. As long as your intentions are well, people can sense it.
Yeah.
Ask away. It's better to understand than to stay ignorant. You know?
Yeah, that's definitely the consensus on the podcast. We talk to people and they're like, ask questions, just be genuine about it, and don't assume things. Just ask with genuine curiosity, and it'll be appreciated.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's basically it. You know, just educate yourself, expose yourself to things, even if you disagree with them. It's actually very healthy, and even if you end up not agreeing with them, you just start firmly believing in whatever you already believed in. But it's a win-win either way. So
for sure.
Thank you guys for having me. This was such a good conversation.
This was so fun. Thank you. Thank you so much to Taif Al-Madi for coming and speaking with us. She is a phenomenal person and student at Brigham Young University, and it was such an honor to be able to speak with her. I also want to give a shout out to Josh Orton, because this is the last episode that I co-hosted with Josh. He has moved on to bigger and better things, quite literally, because he moved to Texas. But Take a Leap would not be Take a Leap without Josh. We worked behind the scenes for like 10 or 11 months before dropping our first episodes in November, and Josh was critical in the brainstorming. He had so many great ideas, co-hosted so many episodes, and just always had a positive attitude. Josh is the best. I know that you're already missing Josh's voice, and so I have good news. This Friday, March 7th, we're dropping a bonus episode asking Josh a bunch of questions. You really get to see a lot of personality from the Take a Leap team. It's super fun. It was such a fun conversation. So tune in for that. Friday, March 7th, we're saying goodbye to Josh, and it's truly bittersweet. Sayonara, Sammy. Sayonara.